Today we have a super interesting one, and I really need y'all's help. Down in the comments, if you feel comfortable, please let me know if it has worked for you. AA or NA, Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous. Either one doesn't matter. What the fuck is going on, YouTube? It's Ashcon, aka Dropped Out Beats, back again with another Addiction Neuroscientist Reacts video. For those just tuning into the channel, I'm a trained addiction neuroscientist and hip-hop producer, and this is a part of a series where I react to a variety of entertainers, whether it be musicians, actors. Last time we reacted to a fighter, talking about their thoughts on drugs and their experience with drug use, whether it be firsthand or secondhand. And so today we're going to be reacting to Mod's son on the Steve-O's Wild Ride podcast. I think I've said this before, but man, we're going to be reacting to a lot of Steve-O on this show, on this YouTube channel, because Steve-O talks a lot about drugs, you know what I'm saying? So we might as well make this the Steve-O reaction channel or some shit. No, I'm just playing, but today we have a super interesting one, and I really need y'all's help with this one today. If you would be so kind, by no means should you feel obligated, you beautiful degenerates, don't feel obligated to participate in this, but I would like this channel to help people help each other, right? Whether that means, you know, getting help from drug use, or, you know, recognizing that you have a problem, recognizing that you don't have a problem, you know, whatever it may be. And so today we're going to be talking about Alcoholics Anonymous. And more specifically, we're going to be discussing the lack of consensus from everywhere, whether it be academia, therapists, Alcoholics Anonymous themselves, as to how effective Alcoholics Anonymous is, and is Alcoholics Anonymous right for you? And so where I need your all's help is down in the comments. Down in the comments, if you feel comfortable, if you have been to AA, please let me know down in the comments if it has worked for you. AA or NA, Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous. Either one doesn't matter. A substance use disorder is a substance use disorder is a substance use disorder, right? And that's part of what Steve-O is actually good at making known through his podcast. But so if you have been and it has worked for you, I'm honestly curious. And if you have been and it hasn't worked for you, please let me know. I'm honestly curious, because I think AA is great for a lot of people, and I think other therapy options are also great for other people. It's just whatever works for you. And whatever helps you make your life better, that's what we're here for, and that's what the community that we're trying to build here is about. And so that's why I call you guys beautiful degenerates, because, you know, we're all a bunch of degenerates here, and hopefully you don't get offended by me calling you a beautiful degenerate. I'm a beautiful degenerate. You're a beautiful degenerate because you're tuned into this channel. So let me go ahead, throw my headphones on, take my big ugly head off the screen, and we'll look at Steve-O and Mod's son discussing sobriety. Let's get into it.
Just I do have a question, whether you leave this in or not, but like, so I'm 3 years, 8 months, 7 days sober without drinking or drugs.
No weed.
So that's been about like a year and a half.
Okay.
Wow. Congrats, dude.
So like, it's
So I gotta pause it there already real quick, because I'm gonna tell you guys a little story. If you notice, Mod's son says he's been sober for his 3 years, however long he said, and then Steve-O asks him, no weed, and to which he replies, you know, a year and a half, basically. And so this is one of my issues with AA/NA, is that they are very wishy-washy on their definition of drug use and sobriety from my perspective. Whether or not, you know, this works for you, it doesn't matter. We're just talking about my perspective for right now. So when I was in grad school, we actually had a therapist come speak to our class, who I'm pretty sure he ran 12-step sessions And he was a trained therapist, ran 12-step sessions, definitely was heavily involved in his church as a churchgoer. And so he was talking about people being sober from their drug use, and I ended up asking him, because he was talking about how people have to stay sober. So I ended up asking him, I said, do you allow people to smoke cigarettes in that attend your AA/NA sessions? And he said, yes. And I said, well, you see the problem I'm getting at here, right? Nicotine affects all of the same brain systems that whatever drug that person was using is. And the guy literally like looked at me and was like, you're the kind of person that we think of as an asshole. And it was like kind of a joke, but the point remains, sobriety would, by the definition of AA and NA, sobriety would be strict, no drug use at all. That would mean no nicotine, no caffeine, no blah, 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 blah. And so I think they need to kind of get that figured out, and maybe that would help the statistics that we'll talk about here in a minute. But it's just kind of hypocritical to me that, you know, we talk, like you'll hear Steve-O talk about in a minute, how there are these underlying issues that you kind of use a drug to cope with, but cigarette smoking and caffeine use and, you know, these other drugs are seen as fine when they still get you high and affect those brain systems. Hopefully you see what I'm getting at here. Comment down below if you have more questions on that, or if you disagree or what have you. Let's get back into it.
To me, you know, it really seems to be getting more difficult.
Okay.
Right? And did you go through that similar around this time? And is there just like,
I am a big fan of the 12-step process.
right?
And I think that it's demonstrable, the, you know, validity of it, because millions and millions of people have come before us.
Yeah.
And, you know, basically the proof is in that.
Yeah.
You know, like there's a book which outlines the 12-step process, and nobody's ever tried to rewrite it. Nobody, you know, like there's just one book since 1939.
Yeah.
And you know, the consensus is they got it right, and the people who follow that book. So the book outlines the 12-step process, and the point at which I believe the obsession to drink alcohol and take drugs is lifted comes when one completes a thorough 5th step.
Mm-hmm.
I think that like just going by that, you know, like step 4 is where you make an inventory of everything that upsets you, and like it's pretty incredible the way everything that upsets you falls into 3 categories. There's resentment. You know, if you're like just pissed off at somebody, then that's upsetting. There's fear, and there's guilt. Mm-hmm. So the inventory process.
Well, harm's done to others.
That brings guilt. You feel guilty because you harmed somebody.
Fair enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you make a list of everything that you can think of that you feel resentful about. You make a list of everything you can think of that you feel fearful about. You make a list of everything you can think of that you feel guilty about. Mm-hmm. And then, you take these lists. That's step 4. You take these lists to somebody and you talk through it all with them. Okay. Get it all off your chest. And the idea is that you break down what your part is in the resentments. You break down what like appropriate indicated action you can do to address your fears. And in this process, you really dismantle everything that screws you up. You take the power out of everything that upsets you. Yeah. And once you've done that, like you don't like that the edge is taken out. Like everything that you're using the drugs and alcohol to soothe is soothed.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the difference is that like if you haven't done that and you're not drinking or doing drugs, you're like what they say is like white knuckling it.
Yeah.
And so it's like that stuff's still inside of you. You're just not covering it up anymore, so it probably will get harder.
Yeah.
And it's just maybe eating you alive. And then when you do take the power to that, or like when you let go of like a secret and like telling somebody, that takes a lot of the power out of it too. And then for me, when I did that, like my life got better and better. But up until that point, and I was sober, it's just like, it's like I had an infection inside of me and I wasn't numbing out to like, to be distracted by it. Like I was finally not doing drugs, and then like the infection was like, oh fuck, it's like painful inside.
Yeah.
It just kept getting more painful and painful. And I think the steps is like cutting you open, doing the work is like, you know, having a doctor kind of clean you out and stitch you back up. You're getting the infection out.
I've heard people say, I never suffered from alcoholism until I got sober.
Yeah.
Right? And that's like, because... because...
Quick little crass joke. In the alcohol research lab, we made the joke that only quitters die from alcohol withdrawal, and you may get offended by that, but there's actually a lot of wisdom in that, because you shouldn't just cold turkey quit alcohol. If you have a serious alcohol use disorder, you have to withdraw, or else you will die. Hence the phrase and the crass joke that only quitters die from alcohol withdrawal.
The drinking alcohol and taking drugs is not the disease. That is, if anything,
I think this was pretty interesting from Steve-O.
remedy for the disease.
Let's just hear him say that one more time.
The drinking alcohol and taking drugs is not the disease. That is, if anything, a remedy for the disease.
Yeah.
That's a symptom of the disease. The disease is centered in our mind, and the characteristics of the disease are restless, irritability, discontent. Like we're just plain uncomfortable in our own skin, and we need to soothe that discomfort. So we cover it up with drugs and alcohol.
Yeah, I thought that was a really interesting take. And so if you've struggled with a substance use disorder or addiction, and you like that take, let me know down below, just so that somebody else can read, maybe get some wisdom from, you know, an older person or somebody that's been struggling for longer. Because I just thought that was a really, really interesting, wise take from Steve-O. I think that's kind of a lot of what you hear in the addiction research too, kind of more sciencey stuff that echoes that idea that, you know, there are these maladaptive brain circuits that have formed as a consequence of drug use in the person, or not necessarily as a consequence of drug use. There are consequences of drug use, right? But there are maladaptive brain circuits that cause someone to continuously and compulsively use drugs. And so I thought that was a pretty interesting take from Steve-O. But let's get into the Alcoholics Anonymous effectiveness now. I know we're pretty far into this, but this is where the good stuff is. And so if you're not familiar with the 12 steps of Alcoholics/Narcotics Anonymous, let's go ahead and take a look at those real quick. So number 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives have become unmanageable. Number 2, we come to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Number 3, we made a decision to turn our will and our lives to the care of God as we understood Him. Number 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. And so that's one of the things that Steve-O was talking about, right? This 4 and 5. And so number 5 being admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. And so, you know, one of my best friends growing up entered a 12-step program. And when I was in college, he was texting me when he was doing number 5, and I was one of the people he was, you know, exacting the nature of his wrongs and stuff, right? So maybe you've experienced this where you've gotten text messages from someone who's in a text messages, phone calls, whatever, from someone who's in a 12-step program. Number 6, we are entirely ready to have God remove all of these defects of character. Number 7, we humbly ask him to remove our shortcomings. Number 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. Number 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. Number 10, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admit it. Number 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. Number 12, having a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. And so, as you can tell, kind of a more religious-centered message focused on God. But if there's anything you can take from Alcoholics Anonymous, it's basically the serenity prayer, right? And so the serenity prayer is, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And so I'm not religious. I'm an atheist myself, but I think the serenity prayer is a great thing. You don't have to be religious or believe in God to have anything to do with the serenity prayer. It's just basically saying that there are things that you can control and change, and you should only care about controlling and changing those things, right? And so that kind of helps people struggling that, you know, they can't help the fact that they have a compulsion to use drugs, but they can help change the fact that they use those drugs every day. And so I think it's kind of a good thing for someone struggling to have a full understanding of that. But with that being said, maybe Alcoholics Anonymous / Narcotics Anonymous is right for you. If you're more religious, it's probably a better fit for you. If you're less religious, maybe not so much. Maybe cognitive behavioral therapy or motivational interviewing, something along those lines might be more effective for you. Contact a substance use disorder counselor to discuss that with them, and you can definitely get yourself on the right path, whether it be through a 12-step program or with CBT. Doesn't matter. Both, you're taking steps in the right direction to control your drug use. And so now we're going to get into the how effective are 12-step programs. And so let's look at some conflicting evidence here of 12-step programs. And so first, I'll leave all of these links below. First, we're going to look at the American Addiction Centers. And so they say that although AA has been criticized by some sources as having a low success rate, the rate likely isn't 5%, which some say it is. Addiction specialists cite the success rate slightly higher, between 8 to 12%. So that's a pretty low success rate if you're right. If you join AA, you have about an 8 to 12% chance of being successful. That's not exactly what that means, but whatever. A New York Times article stated that AA claims to have up to 75% of its members staying abstinent, but the AA Big Book touts about 50% success rate, stating that another 25% remain sober after some relapses. And so you can kind of tell there's kind of wishy-washy data about, you know, how effective is AA/NA. Let's take a look at another a different study. And so this is from Stanford that says Alcoholics Anonymous is the most effective path to alcohol abstinence. And so it should be noted that in AA/NA, they have strict definition that, you know, you cannot drink at all. You have to stay abstinent from drugs, including alcohol. Notice I didn't say alcohol and drugs and alcohol. I said drugs including alcohol, because alcohol is just another drug. And so if we look here, this is from a prominent alcohol researcher, Keith Humphreys. I'm familiar with Keith Humphreys. Let me see where we are here. And so for this Cochrane review, the researchers found 57 studies on AA. Of those, 35 passed their rigorous criteria for the quality. So they're doing kind of like a meta-analysis here. So they say AA shines. Most of the studies that measured abstinence found AA was significantly better than other interventions or no interventions. In one study, it found to be 60% more effective. None of these studies found AA to be less effective. In the studies that measured outcomes other than complete abstinence, AA was found to be as at least effective. For the studies that considered cost, most showed significant savings associated with AA participation. One found that AA and 12-step facilitation counseling reduced mental health costs by $10,000 per person because AA is free, right? That is why it is a great resource, because it is free. You can just go show up. You don't have to pay thousands of dollars to a therapist to seek help. And so this is some more conflicting evidence from a different meta-analysis researcher where they were looking at the effectiveness of AA. And so this is from NPR, where the interviewer asks, okay, so when it comes to, say, the gold standard for treating alcohol addiction, is AA considered vastly better or just a little bit better? And Becker, the researcher, says, well, professional treatments typically involve cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, that's often used in most professional treatments for alcoholism. And so what this research did was look at AA and some of those professional treatments like CBT and what was found was that 42% of AA participants were completely abstinent 1 year, compared with 35 who underwent only professional treatments like CBT. But the thing that researchers point out is that AA is free, like I was just saying, and it's open to everyone. And so the interviewer asked, but AA doesn't work for a lot of people out there, so what should those people do? I think that most professional advice, even with this research, is that many people have different paths to recovery, and so they need to find whatever works for them. What this suggests is that social support helps a lot of people. However, they find that whether it's AA or other support groups, they say whatever people can do to hang on to that gives them the necessary support is really what they should do. Stay hydrated. Anyway, yeah. So you can kind of see there's a lot of mixed data about how effective Alcoholics Anonymous is. And if I had to kind of collate all of this data in my mind, I think AA might be right, that about 50% success rate is the right number. You know, if you join AA, you have about a 50% chance of remaining abstinent from whatever drug you are trying to remain abstinent from. And so, you know, that's not bad. It is very difficult to beat a substance use disorder. And so whatever you can use to you know, stop yourself from continuing that spiral, we're going to encourage, whether it's AA, CBT, doesn't matter. But the last thing I wanted to end on, you know, considering the turn on, tune in, drop out MO of this channel, is that the founder of Alcoholics Anonymous, being Bill W. and Bob Smith, we're going to look at, if you were aware, basically what caused Bill W. to start AA was he had this experience where he saw this white light and he interpreted that God was, you know, coming to tell him that he was an alcoholic and that alcohol, he couldn't control, you know, his alcohol use and the 12 steps, basically. And so, if you didn't know, later on in life, after Bill was sober for a long time, he actually ended up using LSD, D-lysergic acid diethylamide, which we call acid, right? And so this is a little blurb from Aldous Huxley to Father Thomas Martin, If you're not familiar with Aldous Huxley, he's one of the pioneers in the field of psychedelics. But he basically said, a friend of mine saved from alcoholism during the last fatal phases of the disease by a spontaneous theophany, which changed his life as completely as St. Paul's was changed on the road to Damascus, has taken lysergic acid 2 or 3 times and affirms that his experience under the drug is identical with the spontaneous experience which changed his life. The only difference being that the spontaneous experience did not last so long as the chemically induced one. There is obviously a field here for serious and reverent experimentation. And so this actually led to people using LSD to try to cure their alcoholism, their alcohol use disorder, and to stop drinking. And it actually worked for a lot of people before Richard Nixon banned LSD and made it illegal. And there was a bunch of research going on, and so we're going to bring that, they're bringing that research back with stuff like Ibogaine and LSD, but just wanted to point that out, that this whole, you must remain sober or else you're, no longer a good person, no longer a good sober person through Alcoholics Anonymous. It's just kind of wishy-washy. Not to say that AA doesn't work, right? We just talked about that. 50 seems like a 50% success rate, depending on who you ask. But anyway, that's all I got for you guys today. Hope you enjoyed the episode. If you did, down in the comments below, let us know if AA worked for you, or if it didn't. There are most likely some beautiful degenerates who are seeking help through this channel and can learn something from you. So we would greatly appreciate hearing from you. With that being said, I'm going to get out of here. It's Ashcon Dropped Out Beats. Please hit the subscribe. We're trying to get the numbers up on this channel. Please hit the like. I would greatly appreciate you. Yeah. See you for the next one. Got some new, different videos that I'm thinking about doing coming out. I want to do a video on the FDA rejecting MDMA therapy. Let me know if you're interested in that in the comments below, and I'll make a video on that. But for today, that'll be it. Thank you for with me. Peace out.